years young. So I'm a quarter of a century. So I'm getting up there now.
You still got a long way to go, but it is super amazing to see someone so young just taking charge, and a black young man at that, just taking charge is wonderful. I'm so proud of you, and I'm just amazed and can't wait to see what you have planned, and what your future holds.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. Well, we are going to allow our children to go ahead and start asking questions.
Speak their mind.
Yes, and speak their mind.
Give you guys a piece of their mind.
The
Okay,
chat,
that sounds like a plan.
the link is in the chat. So if anybody not wants to add extra people and pass the word around, that's fine. To add any more youth to the discussion, that's great. So we will start now with Ms. Chantel's Charles' son, and they are at the top.
Okay. Do you want him to ask this in form
Yes,
of
let him
questions?
ask. No, we're letting him ask.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. His first question is, what will they do to help with laws to help single parents?
What we do to help with laws to help single parents? Well, definitely as a legislator or a public servant in general, I think the best thing I could do is have a listening ear and be willing to work with folks. I think a lot of times we try to legislate issues that we're not necessarily familiar with. And so since I'm not a single parent, I have no idea all the different things that a single parent would go through. And so I would probably have to do my best as a legislator along with my colleagues to have conversations with different individuals, see what the problems are, see how we could fix it, and see how we can work together to make it a reality. Actually putting policy in place, whether that looks like different funds to go to different people, different resources to go to them, or just being an advocate on their behalf.
Okay.
Ask your second question.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Really good. I was really good answer by State Rep Jones. So I'm at a more local level. I was recently elected township trustee, the youngest person ever be elected position, also the first African American for my township, and was inspired to run by Joel Jones. Like when I heard that he got the young person elected Inkster City Council, really looked up to him as I started to get involved in politics here in Michigan. But I think that one of the easiest ways to help single parents is to give them jobs that pay them good wages so that they're away from the home less, and they only have to work one job, so that once they're done working, they can come home and really be and spend time with their kids. But also, like Rep Jones said, really own that I don't know this issue very well. I was raised by a single mother, but I'm not a single parent. So just really be willing to listen. Which is why recently I planned on introducing a ordinance here in Delhi Township that guarantees prevailing wage for contracts that we have here. And I think that's one way that we can guarantee that single parents, whether single moms or single dads, have a way to make a good living wage they can bring home and feed their families, and as said, be present once they're home.
Okay, Mr. Hilson.
I'll just add, certainly I'm not a legislator. I get to play with the rules that the legislator gives with us. But I will tell you that in my role, as it relates to some of the programs that we do, we definitely listen to single parents, especially around the area of truancy. And I think we become a very strong advocate for single parents who are obviously struggling to make ends meet and also provide a strong, solid support system for their kids. And oftentimes when we're meeting with parents and students who are dealing with truancy issues, it's with a single parent. And my heart always extends to those folks, because I was blessed to be raised in a two-parent family. And I really try to put myself in their shoes so that I understand completely what they're going through and how hard they are trying to comply with what the rules require. And so from that standpoint, we do listen a lot to single parents, and certainly I have great faith in our legislators that they will be able to do some things to help make single parent life a little bit more easier.
Exactly, absolutely, because it's not hard, because I'm a product of a single parent. And actually it's funny, because not funny, because one thing I've found to be kind of ironic is, okay, I was a product of a single parent, and me and my brother. And one thing that's different now, I had both my grandparents, and nowadays kids don't even have both their grandparents. So it's like the grandparents are the single, like my mother was the single parent, now she's a grandparent. And it's like ironic, because it's over time, it's like the family unit is slowly but surely kind of, dividing. And that's something you made a good point, Mr. Hilson, about that. And I absolutely agree.
Most definitely. What's your second question about the bullying? Ask them what they will do to help with. You want to ask the question? He doesn't want to ask.
It's cool, man. Just relax. It's all right.
Second question is, what will you guys do to help with, as far as programs, with children and their attitudes towards school officials and adults? Okay. So what will you do to help with children that have problems with respecting adults and school officials, I guess?
So, certainly one of the things that we're trying really hard to do and accomplish and working in partnerships with schools is to build that relationship. And one of the things that we've added to our truancy protocol is bringing in mediation. Mediation really, I think restorative justice practices and mediation are something that are really important as part of that process. And that really, the goal of that is to essentially build that relationship between parents, students, and the schools itself. Because ultimately that's where that has to happen. That's where from my standpoint, that's where I'd rather see the resources used, because that's the relationship that matters. And ultimately, I think that, I'm hoping that as we start working that into our programming, that we're going to see better outcomes. In other words, we're going to see parents and students and schools reaching agreements that everybody agrees with, buys into, and then we're seeing that relationship stronger as opposed to torn apart. So, that's part of the process that we're really trying to put together and be a part of something that's positive.
Thank
so
you.
I think that that's a really good question, right? And oftentimes I think that this lack of respect, or just like this tension between students and school officials, comes from a point that, like, one, teachers' classrooms are way too big. So they don't have that time to build that personal rapport, that personal relationship with students, so they can engage and really get to a personal level. So what happens is they have to take this cookie cutter approach to all these different personalities, and oftentimes it leads to kids having very bad interactions, right? I think the second issue is we don't have enough Black teachers, specifically Black male teachers in school. And I will say specifically, like, at schools like Muskegon, right, where it's like really only Black teachers, the only Black person you interact with is someone who's a disciplinary person, right? And there are studies prove that if you interact with a Black teacher at a young age, it really increases your ability to, like, function as a student. And it's because they have an understanding of where you come from. They understand your background and they understand how you learn, right?
Amen.
So really good example is, like, let's say, like, your son's really passionate about history, right? And he, like, he claps, he gets really excited, and teacher sees it as a disruption. But what it truly is is that kid expressing passion about history, right? So oftentimes this tension comes from teachers not understanding their students' background. And this comes directly from one, teachers don't get paid enough. Their class sizes are way too big. So it's an issue that can definitely be fixed like legislatively. But I don't put this blame on the students. Don't get me wrong, like students do play a role like in trying to respect an authority figure, but oftentimes it's because that student doesn't feel appreciated, respected, or heard. And that's what leads to that.
Can I chime in real fast? Because it's funny that you said that. And I'm sorry. It's funny that you said that. I had a student and I was his one-on-one student. And I'm gonna make this story quick. And he had a thing where he had outbursts. He got teased for whatever reason. And he would have outbursts, little anger problem. And me and him and I got real close, real close. And me and his mom, we had a discussion about what was going on. They was putting him on medication and stuff like that. And he was one of those kids that wasn't getting attended to. And like you were just saying, he wasn't getting that one-on-one attention. Not saying they need actual one-on-one, but smaller school, class size. But anyway, he got that one-on-one, that one-on-one attention that you were saying. And come to find out, the reason he was having his outburst and was getting teased is because he couldn't read. So anytime he would get called on, to read or something like that, he would have an outburst. And we didn't know why. And of course, the little kids was snickering and teasing him, and we didn't know. And they were so quick to kick him out or, expel him or whatever and call his mom, and it burned her out and everything. But and once I got gave him that one-on-one attention, come to find out he couldn't. He couldn't read. He could read, but he wasn't at his grade level. And make a long story short, me and him worked on his reading. He's a fluent reader now. And you made such a good point. And I knew his mom because she was one of my classmates. And she wasn't, she always gave me the green light as far as, I wasn't a physical disciplinarian type teacher, but at the same time, she gave me the green light to get them together, whatever way I saw fit. But it was because I know her, she knew me, and she trusted me with her child, and we worked on his reading, and his reading got done, and he's actually above. He actually became a grade higher than his reading level, but by the end of the school year.
And that's the village structure that we need to implement in schools. That's exactly what he's basically saying. He witnesses a lot as far as he witnesses a lot of children disrespecting the adults. And so his next question was, what will they do to put more parent chaperones in the schools to help with bullying?
Good question.
Anybody else want to take this? I don't know. So I think that we're actually dealing with this issue right now here in Delhi Township where I live. And it's about whether or not police officers or school resource officers be in schools, right? And if not, what we should replace that with and what that conversation looks like, right? And I agree that like if parents can be more involved, it's really good they're more involved, right? Because a kid is a lot less likely to like show their tail, like when their parents like sit in the back of their classroom, right? It's just not on your best behavior, like your posture is great, like you sitting straight up. So I think that like that's a right, right? I think that's really one good solution, right? And I think that again the way we do that is to make sure that like we have from like a legislative level where parents are given paid time off, they're given vacation time, right? Where they can know for certain like if they took this time off to go to the kids' school, they wouldn't lose their job, right? So much of this is going to be a legislative fix that will open this door to parents being more involved in their kids' like school life and personal life. But that's an amazing way. You're right. Your son's so smart of fixing things like kids like talking out, just to have a parent more involved and have it be a proactive rather than a reactive scenario where the kid's getting disciplined and getting a phone call home, having to take time from school, and the mom has to like leave, mom and dad has to leave work or like get called during work. Like being proactive instead of reactive is such your kid's way ahead of his time.
Thank you.
I agree.
He said thank you.
You're welcome.
He's
So
very
I
intelligent.
kind of want to chime in on the bullying. Okay, by COVID taking effect, there are different ways of bullying now that can really seriously damage our youth more than they can do in person now, because the social internet, you have a wide there, that cyberbullying on the social internet is huge and humongous right now, because you got a wide range of networking going on, and anything that gets posted can get spread in an amount of in an hour. What about are there any new policies or procedures or policing or new laws basically for our youth, especially by all of them being on the internet now? We know they're supposed to be doing work, but come on now, let's be honest, and we got some kids on here, because I know how I know how my goddaughter is, and I know right now she probably got one phone on this and the other phone on the internet. So, it's a wide range. What are we putting something in place to prepare for the cyberbullying?
Question.
Well, I'll tell you from the prosecution standpoint, that's one area that I would hope that our legislators would really take a hard look at. About 2 years ago, I spent several months traveling from middle school and high school and giving a PowerPoint presentation on this very subject, between this and sexting, which I think are prevalent in a lot of our schools. And one of the things that I think really could be addressed is this idea that we do have what's called unlawful posting, which is a 2-year high court misdemeanor here in the state of Michigan, deals with somewhat that cyberbullying. It's not necessarily titled cyberbullying, but it deals with some of the activity that cyberbullying brings, although it's a very complex and complicated statute and law. I would hope that we could get something a little more fine-tuned and tailored to the changes in technology, because you're right. For a lot of us who are older than 25, bullying happened at school, and it stayed at school.
Yeah.
There wasn't Facebook, there wasn't social media, there wasn't internet, there wasn't cell phones. But now it's a 24/7 thing, and I think we really need to find a way to protect our kids from this, because unfortunately, it's a lot easier when you're on a screen, going screen to screen, than it is face to face. And that's the difficulty that our kids face. And certainly, I applaud certainly the legislators for really trying to focus in on school issues, but this is an issue that I think needs to be tackled.
Absolutely.
So Representative Jones, would you like to chime in on that?
Yeah, I actually just got settled. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, we were talking about, Chantel, you want to start from the beginning?
His question was, what will you guys do to help ensure there are parent chaperones in the school to assist with bullying?
What we do to assist the parent chaperones in the building to assist with bullying?
He wanted to know, what will you guys do to try to implement in the laws to help parent chaperones in the school? I guess you want more parent chaperones. Oh, he wants to know, how can you guys implement more parent chaperones in the school to help with the bullying? Because he feels like the school officials aren't listening enough or helping. Is that correct? Okay, I guess the school officials don't effectively know how to help with that. And so he's wondering, how can we figure out a way to get more parent chaperones in the schools to help the teachers with that stuff? I actually volunteered in one of the schools, and some of those kids didn't even care that I was present. And so he wants to figure out how we can figure out how to get this bullying thing under control, but he felt like parents being more present would help that issue, because you can't just do what you want as a school official if a parent's there and not tackle the issue.
Right. Yeah. With that, so I mean, it's a few different ways we could go about doing that. In a perfect world, we could write a piece of legislation that says something, or appropriate some kind of money to encourage parents to come in. Maybe some kind of pot of money that would help parents if they want to take off of work, if they needed to have different resources to do it. But I think also because of the you kind of want to respect people's territories and boundaries. We probably wouldn't be stepping all over a school district, but definitely would say that I've even personally used my platform a lot of times to go into a school district and meet with the principals and the different, the board of education and different things like that. And sometimes you can help encourage them. If a lot of times people are operating on certain levels where they're just not privy to certain issues. They might not recognize the need for certain things. So as us, from being outside of the actual institution, we can go in and let them know, like, hey, this might be something that you might want to do. And I mean, even towards meetings, I just seen a message pop up saying it's difficult with COVID right now. I think having parents there is definitely good. But like you said, sometimes these days I've seen children just they're walking all over parents, or disregarding the whole presence. And so I think we have to really approach the situation from like in the Army, we call it the hearts and minds. Because like, how do we really help change the culture of what it means to be a child, what it means to be a good student, all these different things to get people back on track to how they focus, how they want to do good in school, how they want to just do their work, how they want to be respectful to different people. I think we have to do a lot of things to get back to that. And that all ties into what we can do now is dealing with curriculum. What are our children studying in school? What recreational activities are available? What other special programs are available? The arts, the musics. Is the school having different kind of events that actually make a child enjoy being at school? And so we have to look at these things from a lot of different perspectives. I definitely think that's valid to say parents being there is important. But especially right now when we're in the midst of a pandemic, and school is kind of an ambiguous situation. Some people are in school, some people are virtual. And even with the cyberbullying that's happening too right now, it's just like, how do we really shift the whole culture of our children's interaction with one another to improve it? And that's something that's a larger issue. And I think that's really the case that we need to work on with our entire world. Figuring out how do we shift the mindset of the population so we can just become better people. I'm out here in New York the other day. Somebody, the train I got on today is called the A train. Somebody was on it. This young fella, he slashed like 4 people on the A train. And so it's like, he had it was a mental health issue. I think mental health is something that we need to talk about as well. And,
Yes.
he slashed these people. He was mentally ill, going through different problems that went uncared for. And so we have to figure out a lot of times, if a child is acting out or if they're doing something like that, it might not be because they want to act out. It's so many pressures that are just present in people's lives nowadays. We have to figure out, how do we get down to the point of that and not just treat it, but how do we help heal these pressures? And so we can help alleviate it and actually allow them to be the productive people that they're supposed to be,
Yes.
Very close.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else, DJ? Nothing else you want to discuss? That was all.
Okay. Well, next we're gonna move on to Michaela. She was just on. Come on, Michaela.
Enjoy this conversation. Did you learn something?
Thanks for getting it together. Who was after Michaela?
Jesse?
Oh, Jesse.
Yeah.
You guys want to go next?
I don't have a kid with me. I've got my high school, my sister on. She's in high school. She's a high schooler right now. Let's see. We're messaging back and forth because she's nervous to go on. And I'll go ahead and ask her. I'll go ahead. That's Alana. She goes to Republic. She's a senior.
Sometimes it goes.
So something we've talked about is can trade certifications be offered over just pushing college?
Oh.
Good question.
Because a lot of the times it's harder for, especially our dad, he's like he's Mexican and he has a disability, and it's harder for her to get money for college and like getting the scholarships to go to a 4-year. So it's one of those things where realistically, she's forced, like some kids, I mean, she has help and a very good support system, but like in some cases, kids don't have that. So they're forced to go into trades and basically having to go in and start a job and try and work from the bottom up, where they could start going into a trade school or certification class during school, helping prepare them for when they want to get that job. And frankly, I know a lot of people who went to trade school and they're making hand over fist over somebody who spent $80,000 going to a college. So
Yes.
is there a way to offer that instead of just pushing college? I know that's something that she was really stressed about this year, is just they're like college, and she's like, I don't know. And we started looking into other certification and trade schools instead.
And that's actually, and it's funny because it's almost taken out of the curriculum. Because I know when I was in school and they had workshops and home ec and taught you how to cook and sew and
home ec
and use
metal workshop.
Workshops and all that kind of stuff. It seems like they took a lot of that out of the curriculums nowadays.
It just seems like a lot of the kids have lost their drive over the years. Like as the generations came, it just seemed like the drive to want more and do better was replaced with wanting things now instead of working for it. Somewhere the net came where kids want it now, want to work to get to where it's supposed to be. I don't know what happened with that. I've seen a lot of children now, but don't want to work now to get it later. They want it now.
Yeah.
So
Right.
All right. We're getting ready to let Michaela ask her questions next. Go ahead, Michaela, unmute.
Okay, I have the question of how does the area votes really affect the election?
Can you repeat that?
I have the question of how does the urban area votes really affect the election?
That I'm gonna let Rep. Jones start off with this one.
Well, in terms of the urban area votes, I guess that's how we would group it. I would say it definitely has a potential to affect election in a major way. But just historically, historically, I'm not talking about back in the, when people were more involved and more engaged in their communities, but as of late, it seems that people have lost interest in voting sometimes in urban areas, and so a lot of times it's weight on the election is not as great as it could be. I think that a lot of times when we look at urban areas, the voter turnout is sometimes as low as 10% or under of the entire population. Something that we have to definitely work on. But I think when we talk, I really want to stress so much about what's bad about what we're doing right now. I think that the biggest thing we have to do is have some kind of proactive conversation about how do we actually encourage more people to get out and vote, how we get more people to get engaged in these elections, because they're important. And quite frankly, we pay attention to how elections go in urban areas. Since we don't vote at the rate that we probably should, that's why our roads are terrible. Some of our services are terrible because when you look at the way that money gets dished out and resources get allocated. A lot of times it's dependent on, do these people actually vote? Are the candidates going to want to even care about this certain district or this certain area? And so I think when we talk about urban areas and we talk about elections, we got to encourage them to get out like never before, because we've fallen so far behind now that we need all the help that we can get.
Right, and I think that the urban vote, or like the Black vote, is going to matter as much as we decide to make it matter, right? If we look at when Doug Jones was elected back in Alabama, Black women won Alabama when Doug Jones ran. And they delivered him that seat. And look at what happened in like the Georgia special elections. Like Black individuals turned out and they delivered seats, right? But I think that beyond like what the Black vote means, we have to decide that we're not going to simply let our like people like buy for our vote and then do nothing for our community. And I think that we have to empower ourselves, and once we do vote, to make sure that like they are meeting our demands and make sure like they are coming in to our communities after the election is over to listen to us and ensure that they work to earn that vote next time, right?
Right.
And this is a well-established problem within like the Democratic Party. Like we have to make sure that when we give them our vote, that they continue to earn over those next 4 years. And if they don't, and instead of waiting for them to put up a candidate that we think we will support, we put up our own candidate that we know will represent our views and our values. Right. That's one of the reasons why I decided to run for office. I got so tired of saying like, oh, well, they should do this. Well, I voted for like they should values, right? I'm one of their constituents. So like, why aren't they supporting my issues? At some point, you have to ask the question: if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? Right? So it's a twofold question. The Black vote will matter as much as we decide to make it matter. If we decide to turn out, we will decide how an election goes. If we decide to sit out, it'll determine how the election goes. But the Black vote is going to matter once we force them to come back into our communities, engage, and truly represent our values.
Amen.
And those are two hard acts. Those are two hard acts to follow. But I agree with certainly with both views. In particular, Representative Jones' view, in that the idea that it seems like every election cycle, so every the off elections every 2 years, and then the presidential election every 4 years, there seems to be this surge to try to get the vote out, in particular in the urban areas of communities like Muskegon County. And I think everybody should understand that their vote is as important as the next person's vote. I mean, the vote in Muskegon Heights is just as important as the vote in Norton Shores or Fruitport, similar to the city of Muskegon. All those votes are really important. And in a community like Muskegon County, I agree. I mean, I think hold us accountable. And that's one of the reasons why I spend a lot of off election year time working in the community, because ultimately being a public servant is exactly that. It's serving the public. And when I first took office in 2013, that was kind of my attitude, and that was my mantra. And that's why I spent a lot of my extra time doing exactly that. I tend to not say things that I don't mean or don't do. And so I really think it's important that we let the folks that are getting your vote, that you can say things in a respectful way, certainly, but they should be held accountable. And if you're not ready to be held accountable, then don't run for office.
Yes.
Because it's not a power grab. It's because you want to make a difference, like Taiwan said. You want to make a difference, like Representative Jones said. You want to make a difference in your community, and that's why you do it. And on top of that, I really think that schools, we talked a little bit about curriculum, schools really need to go back to this idea of what civics and government, that being a part of, a core part of education. Because we're gonna get to a point, and maybe we're getting close to that. We're gonna have generations that don't understand what the Constitution is, they don't understand what happened in history, and how that framed where we are today. because, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I remember, Schoolhouse Warehouse, where, how a bill becomes a law. You have that bill kind of going around. They did a very nice job of in a very simple way, teaching us, what happens. And I bet you today, if you'd ask some folks, some school age kids, they might even know that process. And that's sad, because it's guys like Representative Jones, those 25-year-olds. Those are the voices that we need. We don't need the old codgers. We need some young voices, because again, it is. I mean, the times are changing. The times are fast.
Yes.
And we need some folks that are going to keep up with that, right?
Yes.
And
Definitely.
so I would love to see schools being able to, and I know Renee Garcia is on here, and I know they work very hard, but schools inspire young people to seek this type of work, because it's not all fame and glory. I'll tell you that right now. And
No, it's not.
but my two fellow panelists know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not fame and glory. You take the good and the bad, but I think if in your heart you've got the heart of your community, you've got the passion to serve. Those are the folks that we want running for office, because those are the folks that are going to represent who we are and what we want to see accomplished. And so, I mean, again, I go back to school. School is so important in instilling that passion. And so, that's kind of where I stand. But I would love to see some more focus on that civics, that government, because I think we're missing that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Definitely missing
Michaela, I have
that.
another question.
Yeah. Okay, Michaela, go ahead and ask your next question. You gotta unmute it.
Okay, my second question is,
They can't hear you.
different laws be made for juveniles who commit crimes?
You didn't unmute it.
Can you
I think
repeat
it's
that
a-
one more time?
Yes. Will different laws be made for juvenile crimes?
So I think the question was, will different laws be made for juveniles who commit crimes? Is that
Yeah.
Yeah.
the question was, right?
Mhm.
And I think that a part of this is going to start is we have to move away from creating laws and that are so punitive, right? And move towards a restorative justice process where we're investing inside of
Amen.
make sure that this process is repeated, right? Because like oftentimes punitive measures don't make better citizens, they make angrier citizens. It's what right? They come out mad at the system, and instead of because then they're forced to take some responsibility. But if you have a restorative justice process where you look at will you look at the thing that you did was wrong, how you harm the community, it requires some introspection and requires you to look at yourself, right? So rather than this focus on laws, like shift our criminal justice system, shift our local prosecutor's office, shift our local justice system in general to focus more on restorative justice so that we can ensure that we're building stewards of community so they can really see, oh, this is how the crime I committed affected my community. Here's how it's affecting my home. Here's how it's affecting X, Y, and Z. And it becomes a lot more like, I'm upset with myself. I'm not upset with X, Y, Z. I'm like, oh, I could have prevented this and so many different issues, right? And then the second level list is going to be crime prevention only happens when there's a lack of resources inside of communities. If we invest in communities, if we give them resources, like if we give juveniles resources like after school programs, like apprenticeships, like things like investing in trades so they have something productive to do with their times, you see things like crime and poverty go away because they have that investment. So it's not just about restorative justice. It's about also ensuring that like the community has access to resources that they need in order to be successful.
Very, yeah.
Ooh. Sniper that one.
Yeah.
You got that one, brother.
Very, very good.
That was speechless.
Mr. Hilson, you want to elaborate on that too?
Well, sure. I mean, I can tell you, one, the juvenile justice system is designed essentially to be a restorative type model. you don't see necessarily the types of punishment that you would in the adult system. And so it by its very nature and design, it's supposed to be more restorative. Now, can we improve on that? Absolutely. I mean, certainly one of the things that I had the pleasure of working on in Lansing with some of my fellow stakeholders was the change in the juvenile, the age. So starting, I believe, later this year in October, as a matter of fact, juveniles will now be under the age of 18 instead of under the age of 17 like they have been for years. And so 17-year-olds now will be part of the juvenile justice system. As it relates to restorative justice, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and that's why I think Muskegon County is very unique in a lot of the things that we do. So, for example, my office, we have both the juvenile and adult diversion programs, and so we're essentially diverting people away from the criminal justice system, and part of that is using mediation and restorative services, which is here in Muskegon County. Also, as it relates to the adult population, I was able, because of my relationships with the Department of Corrections, we were able to secure a 2-year grant. And it's the people that received this grant were Dallas, Philadelphia, and Muskegon. And it's based upon, the whole grant is based upon treating our more high risk, high needs offenders, those offenders that are on the verge of committing a violent act, is to give them an opportunity to make the right choice and right decision. So we utilize our exit program. And one of the things is exactly as Taiwan said, one of the things that we have inserted in this process is mediation, whether it be victim offender mediation, if the victim is certainly willing to do that, but the victim might not just be a single victim, it might be a neighborhood, it might be a block, so that the offender can hear from the neighbors, the neighborhood where the crime happened. They can actually understand the impact of that decision he or she had on that neighborhood. To me, that serves a far better way of dealing with things. Now, I will say, because certainly as a prosecutor, we also have to be concerned about public safety and victim rights as well. And there are going to be cases where people are just going to have to go and sit down for a minute. But I consider that a minority versus the majority of what we can do in handling and making that individual. The way that I look at it is that I want a system where the individual entering that system comes out better than when they entered it. And I think we're kind of trying to make our way towards that, but it's going to take a lot more, and it's going to take a lot more resources it's going to take a lot more resources on the front end of the system than on the back end. And I really think there are ways to do that. And certainly, again, the last thing we want is a generational cycle. I hate that. The generational cycle of people entering the criminal justice system, trying to find ways to break that cycle is kind of where my passion and my focus is to really look at ways that we can break the cycle. Again, invest more on the front end of the system so that we're not worrying about the back end anymore. And that's when we're going to see, hopefully, our crime rates go down, or recidivism rates go down, and we're going to see communities that are thriving instead of falling apart.
Absolutely.
Now, I kind of want to elaborate a little bit. We talk about breaking the cycles. I've heard that for so long. Everybody wants to break the cycle. And I think we need to stop saying break the cycle and start saying something to the effect that, okay, this step forward didn't work, so we're gonna have to change again. Because the more we try to break the cycle, it seems like everything stays at the same pace and nothing ever changes. So if we go at it and looking at it in a different way, instead of considering it as breaking cycles, let's just start thinking at it as, let's start making changes.
So,
Yeah.
Michelle, a candidate I worked on, her name is Poppy Ciachanan, and she actually is from the Heights. This is like back in 2018, like we were talking about the quote unquote blue wave. And like one of the things we talked about was this idea that when you go inside of impoverished communities, you have to swim against the current while also trying to find another current, right? So like the struggles that like people from impoverished, like high crime community rate spaces, they're not only trying to not join what's happening in a community that's bad, but they're also trying to find a different path, a different avenue. And that's hard for adults to do, let alone young people, right? So you're right, it's not just about quote unquote breaking a cycle, right? Like the cycle can't be broken if we're not investing in those communities, right? The
Mhm.
cycle can't be broken if we don't give them the path, the venue, the avenue, so that they have access to something different. Like the task that we're forcing our youth to do is to, as said, not take the easy way out and fall into the crime, some of the bad things that happen in the areas, right? Because that's easy to do, right? But we're
Right.
asking them to not only avoid that, but try and find something new. And if not, like, and oftentimes they have to create those new avenues. They have to create those new things. You have to create those positive outlets. And that's just too much for any youth to do. So, like, what it comes down to is we are not doing our job as elected officials. Like, business owners, like, aren't doing their jobs. Like, the
Mhm.
community isn't doing their job to create this positive way for kids to interact inside of their community. Like, and that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
So how do we get like our community and our city officials um to change this, because it's been so long for the same, our youth have been longing for the same things for so long. So what is, I mean, you guys are young. What are some things that you see happening to help make these change? What do we as the community, we as people need to do to help you guys put things in motion for our youth?
I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna let somebody else go.
Go ahead, Representative.
Well, I mean, if it's anything I would say, I think just making sure you hold us accountable is probably the biggest thing. I mean, I think we have a lot of conversations. We talk about a lot of things we're going to do. Folks have a lot of ideas. And so it's important to make sure that you don't, if you're passionate about something or you know something needs to be fixed, make sure that we don't forget it. Make sure we don't drop the ball on it. And then aside from that, when we partner together to work on projects or to work on different things, just be ready to speak out about stuff, to demand more from other people, be willing to partner. I think a lot of times when we get stuff done, especially things that are um, good for everybody, it requires a good messaging campaign. Sometimes that means that you might have to come and testify in front of someone, or you might have to um, share a little bit about your story. So, like when you're passionate about something, just be willing to be committed to seeing it getting done. That's all I would say, though. Besides holding us accountable, and
Now you
just
say, now you say
performing.
holding accountable. That's been my word all year and last year. Okay, accountability. Ooh, that's my favorite right there. Now y'all, you guys are young, so I feel like I can talk with y'all and keep it real. So what can our citizens, regular citizens, we know what goes on behind closed doors, and we talk behind closed doors. But and we their favorite conversation is, especially when citizens know people are involved in the community. Their first question, the first words that come out of their mouth are, "Well, what you need to do is," and you're sitting there like, well, why are you telling me instead of going and speaking to your officials? I'm just one voice. It's better to have 5 and 10 voices instead of just my little simple voice. So, what do you think can be done to get our people to voice their opinions and to speak up instead of just inboxing and talking amongst each other? It's like we're scared to actually hold you guys accountable instead of actually doing what we put y'all in there to do. I mean, a lot of people don't realize we put people in positions, but we don't
So basically, what do we do to, I guess, encourage people to speak up?
Yeah,
Say
and the same for kids. A lot of kids are afraid to speak up. They see what's going on. They watch the news.
Yeah, I mean, for that, a lot of times you gotta have that personal touch, and so I think it would definitely, I mean, even when you're campaigning, you do, typically it's a little different with the pandemic going on, but you will have like canvassing, you go door to door, you go meet with people. I think the most important thing we could do is just meet people where they're at, because a lot of times those conversations on that basic level when it's just you and another person, y'all just chatting, that allows people to be, comfortable with their voice. I think, of course, you can't meet every single person, but if you can somehow meet a few people and then they can meet a few people and everyone can get to talking about, what we would like to see change, what we would like to improve. After a while, you realize that, a lot of us want similar things. A lot of us want the same stuff. And so while we might not always want to speak out about it, we're all kind of in the same boat. We just need to go ahead and learn how to be more of a community. And this also gets back to what I was talking about earlier. Like, how do we address the real issue of, how are we thinking? What was our mentality as citizens? It should be no problem for us to voice our opinion. It should be no problem for us to um, do things that we think other people should be doing in our community if it's going to improve um, our neighborhoods and whatnot. And so, but I think at the end of the day, probably the easiest thing to answer that question though would just go meet people where they're at, talk to them.
mm,
The there are a couple of things you can do, right? One of the first things is like you don't need us to like organize community town halls, right? If the community got together and said like, hey, let's meet up at like the big local church and talk about like what issues are affecting us the most and say what we want to see different, and then they use groups like A&M Political Views, like Revolutionaries Demanding Justice, to unite that voice and to use that platform to apply pressure, then you can easily get these state reps and your state senators and your representatives to do what you want them to do, right? Because there's nothing more a politician hates or a business hates than bad press, right?
Hmm.
Like someone constantly like you aren't showing up, you aren't doing what I elected you to do. There's nothing they hate more than that, right? So you can write letters to editors of like MLive or depending where you live, like write letters to your local paper about where you think that like your representative is failing you, right?
mm,
And then it's about making sure that you're uniting under one voice, one organization to really like push that message, right? So you can organize protests. You can come to Lansing, right? And like, like organize a protest outside of Lansing, like go to your state rep office and like or try and call them and stuff about what you want to see done differently. I
mm,
think like we we have to like look at what we can do for before we go talk to our state legislators, right, to apply pressure, right? Because if it's just one of us, they're like they're going to ignore us. But if it's the entire community surrounding around an issue, they're like, no, like we had a community town hall, like we organized like a protest, we like had petitions signed, like we sent you emails, we called, right? Like when the community decides to be that driving
mm,
force of change, it's going to be very hard for politicians to ignore you, right? But what that takes is people like you two, right? Like Michelle and like Avian saying what issues you want to be fixed. We're going to write them down. We're going to work with like the local organizations, like Revolutionaries Demanding Justice, like local Black Lives Matter chapter, and be like, yo, okay, now we're three big organizations, right, who are all organizing this area, saying like, hey, this is what your community is demanding. Meet some of these demands, meet all of them, or we will not vote for you. Like we will make it our business to
right,
find someone to primary you who
right.
will meet these demands, and we will make sure you lose, right? So
Yes.
yeah, that's what it's going to take. And I know it sounds like a lot, but like honestly,
Oh, no, no,
No,
no, no.
you good. You good. I mean, it's
Mm.
teaching. It's teaching. I
Mhm.
mean, it really is. It's teaching. So
yeah.
no, go ahead.
But it
By
also
all
starts in
means.
schools, like DJ mentioned earlier, right? Like we often talk like our civic duty is just to vote and go to jury duty, right? But like
Mhm.
oftentimes, sure, voting can be how your civic duty starts, but it's volunteering to help like your politician who represents your values get elected, right? It's
Mhm.
calling them and holding them accountable, saying like, hey, you voted bad on this issue, like what's going on? It's checking like the state legislative website to see what bills are coming up, to see, oh, like,
Mhm.
okay, they're gonna vote on this issue soon. I'm gonna call and make sure they know how I want them to vote, how the community wants them to vote, right? And that can be done by like organizations Really taking the lead, saying like, okay, there are 5 bills coming up to vote this week that are likely to make it out of the community. How do we feel about this? Okay, we feel like they want to vote no. So let's call them, let's email them and make sure that they know we want them to vote no, right? Don't get me wrong, like it's putting a lot of work on the community, but the alternative is to do nothing and then they don't hear our voice.
Absolutely.
So if you have this like, hey, I called you, hey, I emailed you, and you still ignore me, like, no, now we're primarying you, now we're done with you. Like, we gave you a chance to do the right thing several times. You ignore the community here, here, and here. And then when you find a candidate to run, you say like, hey, they have these emails that you ignored, and you use it as a point to attack and really force them to say like, hey, why didn't you show up? So yeah, yes.
Ooh, I love you, man. I love you. I love my youth. I love you guys. You are like, oh my gosh, you just don't know. You are an inspiration to the youth. They just don't know it yet. But I promise you, Taking Back Muskegon and AM Political Views will definitely make sure our youth are prepared in watching, because it's definitely a different step from what we're doing right now. You guys are paving the way, and I think that more youth need to know who you guys are, what you do, because I think it's very imperative that our youth see more of their peers, closer to their age, getting involved in showing them that, hey, it's okay to do this. It's okay to speak up. Whether you came from a silver spoon or whether you came from the streets, it's okay. It's definitely okay. And you guys, in Representative Jones, it is such a pleasure to meet you. Your spirit, oh my God, and your personality is amazing. I love you. You keep who you are. And don't you ever change, because a lot of people get in these positions and change. You two, please do not change. Keep your spirit. Because when I first talked to you on the phone, honey, it was like I was talking to one of my kids. So I love your attitude. Just keep it. And I look forward to doing more things with you, because we have a lot of things going on that we're getting our youth involved in politics, because we want them to understand and we want them to know the levels, the different levels. We feel like if we can't get it taught in the schools, then Take It Back Muskegon is definitely going to be an organization that at least teaches it, so they'll know who their state representative is, who the president is, who the vice president is. And how important it is to vote, and what the importance of it is to having a voice. And we're going to start within the schools. So yes, I'm looking forward to doing many great things with you too.
Yeah, because it's a good thing for the youth that's with us today to be familiar with you guys, because it's kind of like how you were saying earlier, like we was talking about earlier, like the one-on-one thing. Because on the flip side, I'm familiar with DJ Hilson, and he's a person that I admire and look up to as well, because I see how active he is in the community also, because I'm familiar with him. And that can apply with the youth that's with us today to you guys, because they're familiar with you guys now. And you know what I'm saying? We really need more of that. We need more of that. And I really appreciate you guys for coming and taking out the time to even, hear our youth and hear what they have, the questions that they wanted to ask you guys, and answering them fully, and being, you know what I'm saying, and being so patient with them, because we need more of that in our community. And that's one of our biggest problems.
Yes, this was our first one. A lot of the kids was nervous, but I'm hoping after they see this, they see it's not so bad.
It's not so bad. Yeah.
And they get to, you guys are just, everyday people,
down to earth,
and they
back,
can, open up to you and actually ask the things that they want to ask you without any problem. So, like I said, this is just the first of many that we have hosted. We be hosting for our youth. So I appreciate you guys starting it off for us. I really do. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you so
Representative
much.
Jones, I know you are in New York, and that is the life of fun. So you just have a good time, enjoy yourself. And again, thank you all. I appreciate everyone for coming on. I really do. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to be here with our youth.
And Mr. Hilson, I would like to, because I know you mentioned something about some program that I can't remember exactly in detail what you were talking about, but I would like to discuss it more in detail with you on a different.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of different stakeholders in that program.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to have that discussion with you.
Okay. Okay.
It's very innovative. In fact, that's what it's called. It's an innovative probation initiative because it's
Okay.
innovative.
Now, is that
And
the
so-
program, the thing that we're doing on the 23rd? That you have going on the 23rd, the Zoom thing, or is that something different?
I don't. I guess I don't know. It's a.
Just keep us
I
posted on that.
I got so many things on my calendar right now. It's crazy. I mean, I feel like a representative sometimes.
Yeah. And it is an honor. We have state reps. Oh my God, you guys are like Michelle was saying, you guys are young Black men that is an inspiration, and that can let the young Black, the young youth of today know that it's possible. Again, I really admire you guys. I really appreciate what you guys are doing as far as your positions, and we encourage you guys to stay focused and keep it up.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I certainly appreciate y'all having me on. I look forward to more in the future too.
Oh, definitely. I got your number now. Don't be blocking me either.
I got y'all.
Yeah.
Peace and love.
All
Yeah,
right.
no, Renee Garcia, just to back up, Renee Garcia reminded me, it's the Literacy Summit. That's what I invited you guys to.
Okay.
Okay.
That's Reed Muskegon. That's just something I'm involved in on the sidelines.
Oh,
But,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
but it's
Okay.
tackling literacy here in Muskegon County.
All righty. All right, you guys. Thank you.
Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You guys too.
Thanks.
I'll get you guys stuff that I collected through this, so
Okay.
Okay.
I'll send it over
And
to you.
why did they stop recording?
I don't know. I don't see it either.
Mm.
It doesn't say. That's crazy. I don't know. Do we just exit out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, y'all.
See
See you
ya. I'll
later.
send you this stuff.